The deep space exploration vessel USS Horizon drifted silently through the darkness of uncharted space. Captain Amanda Wells stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the strange readings that flickered across the main screen. "What do you make of it, Olivia?" she asked, turning to her science officer. Olivia Martinez adjusted her glasses and frowned at her console. "It's like nothing I've seen before, Captain. The energy signature is stable but completely foreign to our databases." The bridge fell quiet. 6 months into their mission to explore the outer reaches beyond human territory, the crew had found plenty of empty space and dead rocks, but nothing like this. "Distance?" Amanda asked. "About 3 hours at our current speed," replied Daniel Green from the tactical station. His fingers tapped nervously against the edge of his console. Amanda nodded slowly. "Take us closer, but maintain alert status. Peter, are you picking up any communications?" Communications specialist Peter Jackson shook his head. "Nothing, Captain. If someone's out there, they're not talking." As the horizon drew closer, what they had thought was simply an energy anomaly began to take physical form on their sensors. It was a structure, artificial and massive. "It looks like some kind of station," Daniel said, his voice tight with excitement and apprehension. "And it's at least 10 times the size of our largest orbital platform." Amanda felt a chill run down her spine. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now it seemed they had their answer. "Life signs?" she asked. Olivia checked her readings. "Inconclusive. The station's hull is blocking our scans." Amanda made her decision. "Prepare a boarding team. We'll dock and investigate if possible." 2 hours later, Amanda led a small team through the airlock connecting the horizon to the mysterious station. Daniel kept his hand near his sidearm as they moved forward cautiously. "The air is breathable," Olivia reported, studying her handheld scanner. "Temperature and pressure within human norms." "Almost like it was waiting for us," Peter whispered. The corridor they entered was tall and wide, with smooth metallic walls that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. Everything was spotlessly clean and clearly maintained, yet they had seen no signs of inhabitants. "This doesn't feel abandoned," Daniel said quietly. He was right. There was a humming energy to the place, a sense of purpose and function. They turned a corner and froze. Before them stood a figure that was unmistakably not human, tall and slender, with 4 arms and skin that shifted colors like oil on water. The being regarded them with 3 wide-set eyes. "You have arrived earlier than projected," the being said in perfect English. "Our timeline must be adjusted." Amanda stepped forward, heart racing but voice steady. "I am Captain Amanda Wells of the Earth vessel USS Horizon. We come in peace and friendship." The being's skin rippled with blues and greens. "I am Commander Zixtal of the Valkyrian Empire. Your arrival has been expected, though not for another decade." Daniel tensed beside her. "You've been watching us?" "Of course," replied Zixtal. "We monitor all developing worlds within our territorial expansion zone. Earth has been of particular interest?" Amanda felt a growing unease. "Expansion zone?" "This outpost serves as a forward observation point," Zixtal explained. "Your discovery of our presence accelerates the timeline, but the outcome remains the same. Earth will become part of the Valkyrian Empire." "Earth is a sovereign planet," Amanda said firmly. "We're not interested in becoming part of anyone's empire." Zixtal's color shifted to a deep purple. "Your interest was not a consideration. The process is standard. All species are given time to develop sufficiently before integration. Your premature arrival here is unfortunate but manageable." Amanda exchanged worried glances with her crew. "We need to return to our ship and report this encounter to Earth authorities." "That will not be possible," Zixtal said. As if on cue, 6 more Valkyrians appeared behind them, each holding devices that resembled weapons. "You will remain here as specimens for the Imperial Court, the first humans to be officially documented." Daniel moved his hand toward his weapon, but Amanda subtly shook her head. They were outnumbered and in an unknown situation. "What about our ship and the rest of our crew?" she demanded. They will be detained but unharmed, Zixtal answered. Meanwhile, the Imperial Armada has already been notified of your arrival. They will proceed to Earth for formal annexation. Amanda's mind raced. Earth had no idea what was coming. They had no defenses against a species capable of this kind of technology. May I at least inform my crew of the situation? She asked, trying to keep her voice level. Zixtal considered this. You may use your communication device once, briefly. Amanda nodded her thanks and pulled out her communicator. As she pressed the button, she locked eyes with Peter and gave an almost imperceptible nod. He understood immediately. Horizon, this is the captain, she said clearly. We've made first contact with a species called the Valkyrians. They've been monitoring Earth. She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. They intend to annex Earth into their empire. Their technology is far beyond ours. Energy-based weapons, faster-than-light travel, planetary shields that... The device was plucked from her hand by one of Zixtal's forearms. That is sufficient information, the commander said, color now pulsing red and orange. My crew needed to know, Amanda said simply. They know enough, Zixtal replied. More than your planet will be prepared for. But Amanda saw Peter's small smile and knew he had done his job. While she had been speaking openly on the standard channel, he had been broadcasting everything on the emergency quantum channel directly back to Earth. It wasn't much, but it was something. A warning. As they were led deeper into the station, Amanda caught Daniel's eye. They think this will be easy, she whispered. They've never fought humans before. In another part of the station, they were separated and placed in individual chambers for what Zixtal called processing. Amanda sat alone in her cell, mind working furiously on a plan. Through a large viewport, she could see the horizon, now surrounded by a shimmering field of energy. Somewhere beyond the darkness of space, Earth remained unaware of the coming storm. But they had sent a warning. It wasn't much, but humans had accomplished the impossible with less. As Amanda watched a massive Valkyrian ship emerge from what appeared to be a tear in space itself, she hoped it would be enough. They think we'll just surrender, she murmured to herself. They have no idea what they're in for. Admiral Frank Donovan stared at the message display in the silent command center of Earth Defense Headquarters. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his knuckles had turned white as he gripped the edge of the table. Play it again, he ordered. The communications officer nodded and tapped her screen. Captain Amanda Wells's voice filled the room once more, slightly distorted, but clear enough. Horizon, this is the captain. We've made first contact with a species called the Valkyrians. They've been monitoring Earth. They intend to annex Earth into their empire. Their technology is far beyond ours. Energy-based weapons, faster-than-light travel, planetary shields that... The message cut off abruptly, followed by fragments of other voices and strange sounds before dissolving into static. That's all we got, sir, the communications officer said. It came through on the quantum emergency channel about 6 hours ago. Nothing since. Frank took a deep breath. Get me the Secretary General. Now. 30 minutes later, Frank found himself in a video conference with 12 skeptical faces, all belonging to the highest-ranking officials of the United Earth government. Admiral, you're asking us to mobilize the entire planetary defense force based on a garbled message? The Secretary General frowned. Do you understand what kind of panic that would cause? I understand what kind of devastation will happen if this is real and we do nothing, Frank replied evenly. The USS Horizon was on a deep space mission. Captain Wells is one of our best. If she says we're facing an alien invasion, I believe her. It could be a malfunction, suggested the European Coalition representative, or some kind of space madness. We've never encountered aliens before. Which means they've encountered us first, Frank countered, and they're coming here. After hours of debate, Frank received limited authorization to begin preparations, but was ordered to do so quietly, without public announcement. As he left the meeting, his aide approached. Sir, Dr. Lisa Cooper is here. Frank nodded. Send her in. Lisa Cooper had once been the military's top strategist before retiring to teach at the War College. Small and unassuming with gray-streaked hair, she didn't look like someone who had helped win 3 global conflicts. "You believe it's real," she said as she entered. It wasn't a question. "I do," Frank confirmed. "And I need your help." "You need to understand what we're up against," Lisa said, sitting down across from him. "Any species advanced enough for interstellar travel will have technology we can barely comprehend." "So we've already lost?" Lisa smiled slightly. "I didn't say that. Advanced doesn't always mean better. It means different. These Valkyrians have likely evolved beyond the chaos and violence that still marks our history. Their society is probably ordered, predictable, logical. And ours isn't," Frank said, beginning to understand. "Exactly. Our greatest weakness might be our greatest strength. Humans are unpredictable. We're emotional. We fight even when logic says to surrender." Lisa leaned forward. "We need to find Steve Miller." Steve Miller had been discharged from the military's research division after an experiment went wrong. "Too brilliant and too reckless," the official report had said. Now he worked out of a cluttered warehouse lab outside of Denver. "Let me get this straight," Steve said, running a hand through his messy brown hair. "Aliens are coming to take over Earth, and you want me to jury-rig our nuclear missiles to do what exactly?" "To work against their shields," Frank explained. The message mentioned energy shields. "Our conventional weapons might be useless." Steve paced around his lab, mumbling to himself. "Energy shields would need to operate on predictable frequencies to be stable. If they've never fought humans before, they wouldn't have programmed their shields to block primitive atomic reactions." For the next 72 hours, military bases around the world quietly went on high alert. Lisa developed strategies based on her theory of Valkyrian psychology. Steve and his hastily assembled team worked to modify Earth's weapon systems. No one knew if any of it would matter. On the 4th day, the outer detection system picked up the signal. Multiple objects moving at impossible speeds toward Earth. The objects slowed as they reached the edge of the solar system, bypassing the early warning stations with ease. In the command center, Frank watched as the first images came through. From the long-range telescopes, massive ships unlike anything humans had built, sleek and gleaming against the blackness of space. "My God," whispered someone behind him. "Get me Lisa and Steve," Frank ordered, his voice remarkably calm. Within the hour, the leaders of Earth's military forces gathered in the underground command center. The mood was grim as Frank showed them the approaching fleet. "Ladies and gentlemen," Frank said, looking at each face in turn, "in approximately 12 hours, those ships will reach Earth orbit. Everything we know suggests they have technology far beyond our own. They intend to add Earth to their empire without a fight because they believe we'll surrender." He brought up an image of the largest ship, a massive vessel that dwarfed anything humans had ever constructed. "Dr. Cooper has developed our strategy based on psychological warfare. Engineer Miller has modified our weapons based on the limited intel we have." Frank paused. "I won't lie to you. Our chances are slim." "Why fight at all?" asked one of the generals. "If their technology is so advanced, wouldn't surrender save lives?" Lisa stepped forward. "History teaches us that no empire treats its conquered subjects well. These Valkyrians see us as specimens, not equals." "Besides," Steve added with a grim smile, "they've never fought humans before. They don't know what we're capable of when our backs are against the wall." As the meeting ended and the commanders departed to prepare their forces, Frank stood alone looking at the display of the approaching fleet. His aide approached quietly. "Sir, the president wants to address the people. What should we tell them?" Frank considered this. The truth would cause panic, but lies would leave people unprepared. "Tell them enough," he finally said. "Tell them we are not alone in the universe, and that we will defend our home no matter what comes." As night fell across the United States, families gathered around screens to hear the president's unprecedented address. Fear spread, but so did determination. In cities around the world, people looked up at the stars, wondering which one harbored the fleet that was coming to change everything. In the darkness of space, the Valkyrian ships continued their approach, certain of an easy victory, unaware that they were about to face an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. The first Valkyrian ship entered Earth's orbit as dawn broke over North America. It was enormous, a gleaming silver structure that stretched nearly 5 miles from end to end. 5 more ships followed, taking positions around the planet like a necklace of metal beads. In the underground command center, Admiral Frank Donovan watched the main screen with grim determination. Beside him, Dr. Lisa Cooper studied the ship's formation. They're positioning themselves over major cities. She noted, classic intimidation tactic. The communications officer called out, "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead ship. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, all languages." Frank nodded. "Put it on screen." The image of a Valkyrian appeared. Unlike Commander Zixtal, this one had skin that pulsed with deep reds and golds. 4 arms were crossed over its chest in what seemed like a gesture of authority. "People of Earth," the Valkyrian spoke, its voice oddly musical despite the cold words. "I am Imperial Admiral Grelvor of the Valkyrian Empire. Your planet has been selected for integration into our domain. Resistance is both futile and illogical. You have 12 of your Earth hours to surrender formal control of your governments and military forces." The screen returned to the view of the ships. "Friendly folks," Steve Miller muttered from his console, where he monitored the modifications to Earth's defense systems. Frank turned to the room full of military leaders. "Opinions?" "We should buy time," suggested one general. "Pretend to negotiate while we finish preparations." "No," Lisa said firmly. "That's exactly what they expect, a rational response from a frightened species. We need to do the opposite." Frank studied her. "Which is, hit them first, hit them hard. Show them humans don't behave as expected." The room fell silent. Finally, Frank nodded. "Prepare the fighter squadrons, and get me Major Ryan Kelly." Major Ryan Kelly was known throughout the United Earth Defense Force for 2 things: his almost supernatural flying skills and his complete disregard for standard protocol. He stood at attention in Frank's office, his flight suit already on. "You wanted to see me, Admiral?" "I have a suicide mission," Frank said bluntly. "I need someone crazy enough to lead it." Ryan grinned. "Then you found the right person." 30 minutes later, 12 small fighter craft launched from hidden bases around the globe. They were Earth's newest models, fast and agile but tiny compared to the Valkyrian ships. "Remember the plan," Ryan told his squadron through the comm system. "We fly like insects, unpredictable, erratic, no standard formations. Keep the Valkyrians guessing." The fighters accelerated toward the nearest enemy ship. On Earth's surface, military bases prepared to launch Steve Miller's modified nuclear missiles once the fighters had tested the Valkyrian defenses. In the command center, Maria Diaz, a communications specialist who had been studying the Valkyrian transmissions, approached Lisa and Frank. "I've noticed something," she said quickly. "Their ships move in perfect synchronization. Their communications follow strict patterns. They fight as a single unit, not as individuals." Lisa's eyes lit up. "That's their weakness. They can't handle chaos." Above the Earth, the squadron of fighters reached the first Valkyrian ship. Instead of forming a standard attack pattern, they scattered in all directions, each pilot flying on instinct rather than training. "What are they doing?" asked a general, watching the seemingly random movements. "They're being human," Lisa replied, with satisfaction. Inside his fighter, Ryan pushed his craft into a wild spiral that no flight instructor would ever approve. His targeting system locked onto a section of the Valkyrian ship that appeared to be a weapons array. "Firing first missile," he announced, releasing one of Steve's modified weapons. The missile struck the Valkyrian shield and passed straight through. The explosion rocked the massive ship, causing it to list slightly. "Direct hit," Ryan shouted. "The shields didn't stop it." Steve pumped his fist in the air. "Their shields are calibrated for energy weapons, not primitive projectiles with nuclear tips." Frank immediately gave the order. "Launch all missiles. Target their weapons and propulsion systems." Across the globe, silos opened and missiles roared into the sky. The Valkyrian ships, recovering from their surprise, began to return fire. Beams of intense light lanced down, vaporizing buildings and creating craters where they struck. But the human attacks continued. The fighters darted between the energy beams, drawing the Valkyrians' fire while the missiles found their targets. "Two of the smaller ships are showing damage," reported an officer. "The main ship is changing position." Maria, who had been monitoring the Valkyrian communications, suddenly grabbed Frank's arm. "Sir, I can use this. Their communications are perfectly ordered, which means I can insert false information." Frank looked at Lisa, who nodded enthusiastically. "Do it," he ordered. Maria began broadcasting signals that mimicked Valkyrian communications but carried false information about human fleet positions and attack plans. On the main view screen, they watched as two Valkyrian ships changed course to intercept a non-existent human threat, leaving them vulnerable to the real attack coming from the opposite direction. "They're falling for it," Lisa whispered. The battle raged for hours. Human fighters, now down to 7 from the original 12, continued their erratic attack patterns. Earth's ground-based defenses, though taking heavy damage, managed to launch 3 more waves of missiles. Then, unexpectedly, one of the smaller Valkyrian ships erupted in a series of explosions. "We got one!" Steve shouted over the sudden cheers in the command center. The celebration was short-lived. Another Valkyrian beam struck a major military base in Europe, silencing its defenses permanently. 2 more human fighters disappeared from the tactical display. But the pattern had been set. The Valkyrians, for all their advanced technology, couldn't predict the seemingly random human attacks. Their perfect formations began to break down as they attempted to counter threats from all directions at once. A second Valkyrian ship lost power and began drifting. A third took critical damage to its main weapons array. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the attack stopped. The remaining Valkyrian ships pulled back to a higher orbit, out of range of the missiles. "They're retreating," Frank said in disbelief. "Regrouping," Lisa corrected. "They're not leaving. They're reassessing." In the sudden quiet of the command center, Maria held up her hand for attention. "Sir, I've intercepted a transmission from their fleet to what I believe is their homeworld." She put it on the main speaker. The Valkyrian language was impossible to understand, but their translation computers picked out phrases: unprecedented resistance, fighting patterns defy prediction algorithms, request immediate tactical reassessment, and finally, the words that sent a chill through everyone who heard them: they fight without logic or self-preservation. "Alert the Emperor. These humans don't behave as expected." Ryan's voice came through on the comm system from his fighter, one of only 5 that had survived the battle. "Did we win?" Frank looked at the devastation reports coming in from around the world, then at the Valkyrian ships regrouping in high orbit. "No," he replied. "But we showed them that humans don't surrender easily. And next time, they'll be the ones who are afraid." Light years away from Earth, Emperor Dravnos of the Valkyrian Empire sat motionless on his crystal throne. His skin, usually a calm blue, now pulsed with angry reds and purples as he listened to Admiral Grelvor's report. 3 ships lost? To primitives? The Emperor finally spoke, his voice dangerously quiet. The holographic image of Admiral Grelvor bowed all 4 of his arms in a gesture of shame. "They do not fight as expected, Emperor. Their attack patterns have no logic. They sacrifice their own cities to draw our ships into traps. How is this possible? Our analysis indicated they were at least a century away from being a challenge." "They are a chaos species," came a new voice. The Emperor turned as the Imperial Science Minister approached. The minister's skin was a dull gray, the color of pure, analytical thought. "Explain," demanded the Emperor. "Most intelligent species evolve through cooperation," the Science Minister began. "But a few rare ones evolve through constant competition and conflict. Humans are such a species. Their entire history is marked by warfare and struggle. It makes them unpredictable." The Emperor's skin darkened. "Then we will send the entire Imperial fleet. Unpredictable or not, they cannot stand against 10,000 ships." Meanwhile, on a different level of the Imperial city, Captain Amanda Wells and her crew were being held in a research facility. They had been separated for weeks, subjected to tests and examinations. Today, for the first time, they had been placed in the same observation chamber. "Are you all right?" Amanda asked, looking at each crew member with concern. Daniel Green nodded grimly. "They're studying us like lab rats, trying to understand how we think." Olivia Martinez had been sitting quietly in a corner, her eyes closed. Now she opened them. "I found something," she whispered. "They left me alone with the terminal yesterday. I managed to access some files before they caught me." "What kind of files?" Peter Jackson asked. "Their psychological profile of humans." "It's all wrong," Olivia explained. "They think we're predictable, because most species are. They don't understand human emotions, especially fear, courage, and sacrifice." Amanda leaned closer. "Did you learn anything about Earth? About the invasion?" Olivia nodded. "The initial attack failed. Earth fought back, better than they expected." Her voice dropped even lower. "But they're sending their entire fleet now. 10,000 ships." The crew exchanged grim looks. Earth had barely survived 6 ships. 10,000 would be unstoppable. "We need to escape," Amanda decided. "Get this information back to Earth." Back on Earth, the brief respite after the first battle had ended. The Valkyrian ships had withdrawn to the edge of the solar system, but everyone knew they would return with reinforcements. In what remained of the Pentagon, Admiral Frank Donovan met with his team. The room was crowded with military leaders, scientists and strategists all looking exhausted. "What's our status?" Frank asked. "Bad," Steve Miller replied bluntly. "We've lost 30% of our missile capability. Our fighter fleet is down to 23% strength, and our modified nukes won't work as well next time. They'll have adapted their shields." Lisa Cooper, who had been staring at a map of Earth with damaged areas marked in red, turned to face the group. "We need a new approach. The Valkyrians will expect us to use the same tactics." "What do you suggest?" Frank asked. Lisa's eyes were hard. "A strategy so seemingly self-destructive that no rational species would consider it. We use our own cities as bait." The room erupted in protests. "You want us to sacrifice civilians? That's monstrous." Frank raised his hand for silence. "Explain, Lisa." "We evacuate key cities but make it look like they're still populated. We place our remaining nuclear weapons inside them. When the Valkyrians move in to secure these population centers, we detonate them all at once." The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. "The loss of life," someone finally said, "will be far less than if the Valkyrians succeed," Lisa finished firmly. "They don't just want our planet. They want us as specimens and slaves. This is survival." As the debate raged on, Maria Diaz burst into the room. "Admiral, we're picking up a signal. It's from the USS Horizon." All eyes turned to the main screen as a grainy image appeared. It was Captain Amanda Wells, her face thin and tired, but her eyes fierce. "Earth Defense, this is Captain Wells of the Horizon. My crew and I escaped from the Valkyrian homeworld. We have critical intelligence. The entire Imperial fleet is coming. 10,000 ships. Repeat, 10,000 ships." Frank felt the blood drain from his face. "When?" "They'll reach Earth in less than 48 hours. But we've learned something important about them. The Valkyrians can't comprehend self-sacrifice. They have no concept of a species willingly destroying itself to defeat an enemy." Lisa's eyes widened. "That confirms my theory," Amanda continued. "We're being pursued. Our stolen scout ship can't outrun them for long. We're transmitting all data we've gathered on Valkyrian technology and psychology." The transmission became staticky. Amanda's voice faded in and out. "One more thing. Their ships are linked in a network. If enough of their fleet is damaged at once, the entire command structure could collapse." The transmission cut off completely. "Can we get her back?" Frank demanded. Maria shook her head. "The signal's gone." Frank turned to the room full of stunned faces. "You all heard it. We have 48 hours before 10,000 Valkyrian ships arrive. I want every remaining fighter prepped, every missile ready." He looked at Lisa. Your plan to use the cities as bait. Can you have it ready in time? She nodded grimly. The Valkyrians expect us to protect our population centers at all costs. When we do the opposite, it will confuse their entire strategy. What about this network thing Captain Wells mentioned? Steve asked. If we could take out enough of their ships simultaneously, Frank thought for a moment. We need something big, something they wouldn't expect. A young scientist who had been quiet until now spoke up. What about the moon? Everyone turned to look at him. We have 3 lunar mining operations with fusion reactors, he explained. If we overloaded all of them at once when the Valkyrian fleet is in position, Steve's eyes lit up. The explosion would devastate anything in near-Earth orbit. It's perfect. It's insane, someone objected. We'd lose the moon. Parts of it, the scientist corrected. And lose it now, or lose Earth forever? Frank looked around the room, meeting each person's eyes. This is what humanity does best. When backed into a corner, we do the unthinkable. We surprise our enemies. He stood straighter. Let's get to work. We have a planet to save. As the meeting broke up, Frank stared at the tactical display showing the solar system. Soon, 10,000 Valkyrian ships would fill that screen. Earth's only hope lay in being more unpredictable, more willing to sacrifice, than any species the Valkyrians had ever encountered. The final battle for Earth was about to begin. The stolen Valkyrian scout ship limped toward Earth, its engines straining beyond their limits. Inside the cramped cockpit, Captain Amanda Wells and her remaining crew watched as the blue planet grew larger in their view screen. Almost home, Peter Jackson whispered, his hands moving skillfully over the alien controls. And just in time, Daniel Green added, pointing to the radar display. Our Valkyrian friends aren't far behind. Amanda's eyes remained fixed on Earth. It had been 3 months since they had last seen their home planet. Much had changed. From orbit, she could see the scars of battle. Dark patches where cities had once stood, cloudy areas where nuclear weapons had been detonated. We've got a transmission from Earth Defense, Olivia Martinez announced from her station. Admiral Frank Donovan's tired face appeared on their screen. Captain Wells, good to see you made it. Barely, sir. The Valkyrian pursuit craft will be here within the hour. And the main fleet? Our long-range sensors picked them up entering the solar system. Frank's voice was grim. They'll reach Earth in less than 12 hours. 10,000 ships, just as you warned. Amanda exchanged looks with her crew. Tell me you have a plan. Admiral? We do, and your arrival is perfect timing. I need you to deliver something to the lunar base. As Frank explained the details of Earth's desperate strategy, Amanda felt a cold certainty settle in her stomach. It was a plan so audacious, so potentially catastrophic, that no rational species would ever consider it, which made it perfect against the Valkyrians. We'll do it, sir, she said when he finished. The Horizon crew has a score to settle with these aliens. 6 hours later, the massive Valkyrian Imperial fleet began to fill Earth's skies. Ship after ship emerged from faster-than-light travel, taking position around the planet. From the smallest cities to the largest continents, people looked up to see their daylight dimmed by the shadow of alien vessels. In the underground command center, Frank Donovan stood surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of each Valkyrian ship. The formations were perfect as expected, a testament to the aliens' ordered thinking. Their main command ship has taken position, reported Maria Diaz from communications. They're broadcasting. Emperor Dravnos himself appeared on the main screen, his skin shifting between shades of blue and violet. People of Earth, he began, his voice somehow both melodic and cold. Your resistance was unexpected but futile. The full might of the Valkyrian Empire now surrounds your world. There will be no second chance. Surrender now, or your civilization ends. Frank glanced at Lisa. Cooper, who nodded. Everything depended on timing now. Send our response, Frank ordered. On screen, a message appeared. The United Earth Government requests 30 minutes to coordinate a worldwide surrender. Buying time? Lisa asked quietly. Frank checked his watch. Captain Wells needs 22 more minutes to reach the lunar base and set the reactor overrides. The response from Emperor Dravnos came quickly. You have 15 minutes. It will have to be enough, Frank said. He turned to Steve Miller. Begin Phase 1. All across Earth, in cities that had been secretly evacuated, power grids suddenly came back online. Lights flickered on in empty buildings. Radio and television stations began broadcasting pre-recorded programs. To the Valkyrian sensors, it would appear that Earth was continuing normal life, concentrating their population in urban centers. They're taking the bait, Maria reported, monitoring Valkyrian communications. Their landing craft are deploying toward the major cities. On the lunar surface, the stolen scout ship touched down near Mining Base Alpha. Amanda and her crew raced inside, finding the facility deserted except for a small team of engineers. The reactor controls? She demanded. Young engineer led them to the central chamber. All 3 mining bases are linked. Once you initiate the overload sequence here, it will trigger the others as well. Daniel examined the control panel. How long until detonation? 10 minutes. Not enough time for anyone to escape. Amanda looked at her crew, the people who had been through so much together. I'll do it. The rest of you take the ship and get back to Earth. Not happening, Captain, Daniel said firmly. We started this together, Peter added. We'll finish it together. Olivia smiled sadly. Besides, someone needs to ensure the signal reaches the other bases. Amanda felt pride swell in her chest. This was humanity at its finest, willing to sacrifice everything for others. Back on Earth, the Valkyrian landing craft were descending toward the empty cities. 5 minutes until they discover the cities are empty, Lisa warned. Frank nodded to Steve. Phase 2. Throughout the abandoned cities, nuclear devices hidden in buildings and underground facilities detonated simultaneously. The explosions caught dozens of Valkyrian landing craft, destroying them instantly. More importantly, the coordinated blasts created an electromagnetic pulse that temporarily disrupted the Valkyrian fleet's communications. Their network is experiencing cascade failures, Maria reported excitedly. Just as Captain Wells predicted. On the main screen, they could see confusion spreading through the Valkyrian fleet. Ships that had operated in perfect unison now moved erratically, some colliding with each other as their coordination failed. They don't know how to function independently, Lisa observed. Their entire system depends on central control. Frank checked his watch again. And now for Phase 3. Is Captain Wells in position? The communication officer nodded. She's just activated the lunar reactor overload sequence. In the command center of Lunar Base Alpha, Amanda Wells watched the countdown timer. 3 minutes remaining. The reactor's whine had become a deafening roar as it approached critical mass. The Valkyrians have detected the power surge, Olivia reported. Ships are breaking away from Earth orbit, heading for the moon. Too late, Amanda said quietly. She opened a channel to Earth. Admiral Donovan, reactors are past the point of no return. Overload in 2 minutes, 40 seconds. On Earth, Frank acknowledged the message. All remaining fighters, launch now. Get as far from Earth orbit as possible. The few dozen Earth fighters that had survived the previous battle scrambled away from the planet, accelerating to their maximum speed to escape what was coming. 1 minute, Amanda announced, watching as Valkyrian ships began to fill the sky. Above the lunar base, Emperor Dravnos, realizing too late what the humans had planned, sent a desperate transmission. This is madness. You would destroy your own moon? Frank replied simply. We would destroy ourselves before becoming slaves. That's what you never understood about humans. The final seconds ticked away. On the moon, Amanda and her crew stood together, holding hands as the reactor reached critical mass. It's been an honor, she said to them. The explosion began at Lunar Base Alpha and spread rapidly through the moon's crust, triggering the other reactors. A shockwave of unimaginable force tore through the lunar surface, shattering a large portion of Earth's satellite and sending massive chunks hurtling through space. The Valkyrian fleet, concentrated around Earth and the moon, had no time to escape. thousands of ships were destroyed instantly. Thousands more were crippled by the debris and energy wave. In the Earth Defense Command Center, screens went blank as the electromagnetic pulse from the explosion reached the planet. When they came back online minutes later, the view was astonishing. Where once 10,000 Valkyrian ships had filled the sky, now only a few hundred damaged vessels remained, drifting aimlessly. The networked command structure has completely collapsed, Maria reported. They can't coordinate. Frank stared at the screen, hardly daring to believe it. And the moon? Approximately 40% destroyed. The rest remains in orbit, though in a different configuration. Hours later, as Earth began to assess what had happened, a final transmission came through from Emperor Dravnos's ship as it limped away from the solar system. Withdraw from the Sol system immediately. Mark this sector as quarantined. The humans are not to be engaged directly under any circumstances. Should you encounter other spacefaring races contemplating conflict with this species, deliver this warning. Run. Frank stood alone in the command center, looking at a memorial wall hastily erected for those lost in the battle. Among the names were Captain Amanda Wells and the crew of the USS Horizon. They never understood us, he said quietly. They thought logic and technology were enough. Lisa joined him, placing a hand on his shoulder. They didn't know that humans' greatest strength isn't our weapons or our intelligence. It's our stubbornness, Frank finished. Our refusal to surrender, even when logic says we should. As dawn broke over a changed Earth, humanity began to rebuild, and in the debris field that had once been part of their moon, engineers were already salvaging Valkyrian technology from the wreckage of the Imperial fleet. The galaxy would soon discover that the species they had tried to conquer was now coming to the stars, not as specimens or slaves, but as a force that even the mighty Galactic Empire had learned to fear.